really help today's Jews? Hello, I'm Amy Zawi with the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for September 6th, and I'm constantly asking myself this question. This weekend I was looking at Facebook, and a classmate of mine from high school posted about a visit to Dachau and how moved he was by it. And I appreciated that he was able to connect it with a substitute teacher we had in New York back in the 80s who would tearfully recall to us how he was personally part of a regiment that liberated Jews from camps. The comments on this post were thoughtful and aghast in reply to the photos of gas chambers and noting how barbaric the people were and how could they possibly live with themselves as perpetrators or participants or even people that simply looked away. I replied that this history is more than history. It's actually recent memory. And with that, we must keep an eye on the rampant anti-Semitism that is still ongoing today and hurting today's Jewish people. This brings me to a JNS article I just found yesterday. My goal here as a Christian Zionist is to reveal to our entire audience that anti-Semitism is now overtly part of the entire political spectrum. And we cannot simply lament the vile outcome of Nazi fascism and address the neo-Nazi or far-right fringes as the only source of anti-Semitism around today, as important as those things are. It is firmly entrenched in the progressive camp and its foothold in universities, curriculum down to the elementary level, and as a result, bubbling up into our mainstream media, entertainment, press, journalism, corporate worlds, and political halls. Anti-Semitism is again on the rise. At the Jerusalem Connection, we are dedicated to informing and educating about where anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is found so that we can combat it effectively and stand up for Israel as well as Jews worldwide. We will call it out wherever we find it, whether it's from the pulpits of Christian churches to the politicians on any side of the political spectrum or aisle. Each of us has a voice, a pen, a computer, a vote, a community, a network. We can share about this insidious hate in order to quell its effectiveness. I have heard too many times that anti-Semitism hasn't been a problem since World War II, that Israel was formed because or as a result of the Holocaust, and that Jews are just another sector of the privileged white community and are now colonial occupiers. Armed with facts, armed with accurate history, and armed with the full armor of God, we must speak the truth and share it and stand up for all kinds of hate and bigotry, all of which are abhorrent to the Lord. But anti-Semitism, in my opinion, is a form of hate with its roots far deeper than narrow-minded human sinfulness. It is demonic. And the gates of hell will not prevail, and we know this, but we are still tasked with engaging in the battle, even if we already know who wins. The ADL has reported that anti-Semitism is as high as it's ever been in the 80 years of the Holocaust. So clearly Holocaust studies haven't helped much yet. Henry Koppel released an enlightening, if not lamenting, article just 3 days ago to the JNS, titled American Jewish Leaders, Silence and Appeasement. He writes about the soft bigotry of post-World War II anti-Semitism that was manifested as no Jews need apply, and often from right-leaning organizations. And he addresses the violent episodes often perpetrated by the KKK or groups like them. And it was easy to call out and combat these issues, especially since most Jews lean to the left, so the voice was clear and unified. But now the evidence is overwhelming that anti-Semitism is deeply rooted in the left. Henry Koppel notes 4 specific trends in anti-Semitism that is identifiable from the political left, and he is calling out his colleagues to identify it and name it. First, he noted that David Bernstein has called the first one woke anti-Semitism, and it's grounded in critical race theory and promoted by the diversity industry. It depicts Jews as white adjacent and unfairly privileged. Thus, Jews are deemed complicit in the system of structural racism. This mindset is hegemonic in most university administrations. K-12 schools now promote it through such initiatives as California's Liberated Ethnic Studies curriculum. We also call it CRT. Second, highly influential campus-based anti-Israelism is going viral. Embraced by Middle East Studies departments as well as other departments, this ideology brands Israel as an illegitimate settler colonial enterprise. The Jewish state, it is claimed, committed an attempted genocide against indigenous Palestinian Arabs in 1948. The third and new form of anti-Semitism flows from the more radicalized sectors of the Muslim community, though far from a majority view among Americans. He notes a number of mosques have embraced anti-nihilist or nihilist anti-Israelism and Jew hatred, which often aligns itself with the political party on the left in those regions. The last comes from a small but violent subgroup in the black community, mainly radicalized by the Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan's Jew-hating propaganda, again often aligned with the political left. And as summed up by Charles Jacobs and Avi Goldwasser in their 2023 book called Betrayal, the Jewish community is under siege. According to the FBI, Jews are the primary targets of hate crimes in America. Jews are being beaten in the streets of New York City, murdered in Pittsburgh, San Diego, and Jersey City, stabbed in Boston, taken hostage in Texas, and harassed and bullied on college campuses across the country. Most Jewish buildings require armed security. Israel is defamed and demonized by mainstream media and maligned in both Congress and the United Nations. Our education on Holocaust studies, scarce as it is nowadays, only seems to address the 20th century far-right niche of anti-Semitism in Germany in the 1930s and early part of the 20th century. While this niche is vital to know and understand, and its continued trends are important to expose and combat, it is the leaching of anti-Semitism into our left which leads to anti-Semitism in our schools, entertainment, businesses, and political leaders, and it's going unchallenged and unchecked, even by many within Jewish leadership. We, as Christians, must engage in the front line against these things to support our Jewish brothers and sisters. At barely 2% of the population, the Jewish community is overwhelmed, and it is the job of the Bible-believing Christian, as well as all citizens with a sense of justice and fairness, to expose and combat the very trends and ideas that had laid in wait in the early part of the 20th century. Fascism was not the only force of anti-Semitism in Europe. Communism and its Marxist ideals, which Hitler often shared, are a bedrock of anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic rhetoric, and led to much of the bloodshed of innocents in Europe that is often overlooked. I encourage you to read the entire JNS article. Check out the stats and explore important books and essays on these topics. And then prayerfully take action. These issues are not political or right or left. It's about right and wrong. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.